Good evening and welcome to the Gay Liberation Network live call-in show on CAN TV. This evening our topic that we're going to be discussing is gender affirmation in employment, particularly with regards to health insurance and our guest's experience at the CTA. My name is Brent Holman Gomez. I use the he and him pronouns, and our guest this evening is Russia Brown.
I also use he and him pronouns.
And Russia is a bus driver for the CTA, and we're going to talk a bit about the experience of Russia in affirming his gender and and how that worked with his employer. And so, before we jump into the topic, we've got some announcements this evening that we want to share with you, things that are coming up over the next few weeks. So tomorrow, downtown at Grace Place, which is in the South Loop, Triple D, no databases, no deportations, and no detentions. At 1 o'clock, it's an informative session to talk about the gang database that police forces use here in Chicago to identify people for deportation as well as to detain people. So come out to that event at Grace Place. And the next item is in May, on May 5th, a reporter from Haaretz, which is a leading journal in, the leading newspaper in Israel and Palestine, will be here to talk about her experience, both living as well as reporting on the Israeli and Palestinian conflict. So come out to that on the north side at Broadway United Methodist Church. We are marking 50 years of gay activism, LGBT activism, since the Stonewall Rebellion. So in the last weekend of June, 50 years ago, at the Stonewall Inn Bar in New York City, when a police raid was going on to arrest men and women for dancing with people of the same gender, the police raided the bar and people fought back. All types of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender folks fought back and also continued in the years following every year to memorialize this with some kinds of actions, marches, and what has become the pride parades that we celebrate each year. So we'll be having a discussion on that and event up on the north side, up by Granville on the Red Line at the Burger Park Cultural Center, May 17th. Come out and learn about our history as well as where we're going. What's the next 50 years of Stonewall look like? So, in the present, here we are with the situation. I want to talk with Russia Brown this evening about the steps in your gender affirmation and how you approached healthcare providers to start with, and then we'll go into some of the employment things.
Okay. I believe I was on social media and I came across a transgender man, and I was pretty captivated by it, so I went to YouTube to find out as much as I could about the effects of testosterone and what did it mean to be, transgender. And I confided in a friend one day, and she told me that she went to college with someone who had been through the process. And so I was like, would you ask him if he could talk to me, tell me where he went, maybe who I could talk to, like a doctor or something. And when I got in contact with him, he told me about Howard Brown and just to Google the number, call, and go speak with a doctor about it. And I did. Yeah, I ended up going to their new location on 63rd and Low, I believe. Mm-hmm. She went over like the risks, the effects and everything, and asked me if I wanted to start that day.
And what was starting that day like?
I was pretty shocked because I had joined some support groups, and I didn't realize that a lot of those other guys were from different states. So I was a bit confused about the process because some states you need like letters of approval from therapists, and you have to go through therapy and something like that. But that's not the case here. So when she told me that I could start, I was pretty shocked, but excited nonetheless. I guess I didn't really have a whole lot of time to wrap my mind around it. I just kind of did it, and then I had to go to work.
So you started with some group sessions, and you mentioned testosterone, so some hormone, and at some point you started incurring some like healthcare bills, right?
Yes. Yeah. Which it wasn't very like expensive, because at this point I had insurance with CTA, and they were kind of covering portions of, you know, the testosterone, the doctor visits, the needles, and all of that. So in my mind, I was thinking they will. Well, if they're paying for the medicine, they would probably pay for the surgeries as well. But I was wrong about that.
Okay, so is it the point of looking for surgery that you realized that the insurance coverage that you had wasn't going to cover that?
No, actually, I called my insurance provider, and I asked them about bilateral mastectomies and if it was included in the policy, was it covered, and they assured me that it was. Then I went looking for surgeons that I was interested in, found one, went and did the consultation, and I remember calling and asking again if the surgery was covered, and they told me that it was. So once I set a date with the surgeon, a few months went by, and then I got an email telling me that it had been denied because bilateral mastectomy with CTA's previous policy was only covered if you had cancer.
Okay, so so there's a roadblock that's going on here with health insurance, and so I want to remind everybody that this is a live show with the ability to call in and participate. The number is there on the bottom of your screen, and we do encourage conversation here with everybody at home. We have some pictures throughout this process that Russia went through, and so there's a cute picture of Russia as a child.
Yeah, I think I might have been in 2nd grade on this picture. I went to St. Sabina Academy, 2nd grade, yeah.
Great. And just last month, Russia had top surgery, which is the bilateral mastectomy that Russia was talking about. And another scene from the hospital.
Yeah, that was the day that I had a meeting with a reporter from WTTW. I just kind of felt on top of the world in that moment, so I was like, hey, you know, I was with a friend, hey, take a picture. That day was a couple of months ago. My grandmother passed, and that was the day that we buried her, yeah.
Our condolences.
Thanks.
And good news is that you have been able to get the surgery at this point, but there were some roadblocks with the insurance carrier, even with the CTA, which is a large employer. And so, you know, we've talked about on other shows here that the gender affirmation has been scientifically proven as healthcare. It's covered by Medicare. And so the concept that this is legitimate healthcare has been addressed, and yet the insurance companies are still denying surgeries. So, you know, what did you do at that point when you got the denial?
I mean, I was really pretty confused. I was kind of stuck. I'm like, okay, well, what now? Because they had told me for maybe about 6 months at this point that it was covered. So I'm like, okay, well, now I'm back at square one. I don't know where to go from here. So I ended up talking to a caseworker at Howard Brown, and he asked how was the process going, and I'm like, well, they actually just told me it's not covered. So we made an appointment to talk about other options that I had, which weren't ideal, you know, which was basically to pay out of pocket or wait until open enrollment for different healthcare was available, and to try to go with someone else, maybe like Blue Cross Blue Shield or Aetna.
So CTA has different carriers available to
No,
employees?
no. He just meant like healthcare provided through like other companies. Just to go, just go
privately, just
yeah.
on your own. Okay.
I didn't want to do that because I was like, well, you know, I pay insurance with CTA, so I want them to pay for this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like it was right. So I sat for a couple of weeks just going over the options in my head. I ended up getting a call from that same caseworker, and he's like, I have a friend who's an attorney. You know, I told him about your situation. He says he might be able to help and to give him a call.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat after we got off the phone. I sat there for a few minutes. I was really nervous. I had a lot of anxiety. I was like, you know, I don't know what to do. At this point, I had talked to other individuals in the transgender community, and they all said, just pay for it yourself. CTA is too big of a corporation. You don't want to fight with them. And literally one person was like, I think you should go for it. And I was like, okay. You know, literally, I'm like, well, what can change if I sit here? Nothing. And if I make this call, I have a 50-50 chance of making something happen. So I made the call.
Okay. And so the connection to an attorney, Howard Brown Health Center made that link for you. One of your social worker there,
yes.
Case manager there. So that's good. You're at the CTA. You're also represented by a union. Was the Amalgamated Transit Union at all involved, or did you use the local system?
No. I talked to my union rep at my garage.
Mm-hmm.
I told him the situation, and I asked him what I could do, and he kind of didn't know. He was like, well, I guess they, you know, most people see it as an elective, as cosmetic surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just kind of was like, oh, you know, they don't cover that. And I was kind of just like thinking to myself, I know, you know, that's the problem.
That's the reason why we're having this conversation.
Yeah. But that didn't turn out to be very helpful, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to do this another way.
Yeah. And so, and then at some point, I think you got in touch with the ACLU.
Yes.
Was that the attorney that
yes.
you were referred to?
Yes. I talked to him, told him more about the situation, and he says, I think we can definitely help. I'm going to have one of my colleagues give you a call. I ended up getting a call like a few minutes after by Carolyn Wald, the attorney at the ACLU. I spoke with her about a lot of the issues that I was having, and they took it from there.
Yeah, good. Because it's, you know, this is the face of discrimination 50 years after Stonewall, is that maybe we're not getting arrested, but our, you know, LGBT people are being treated differently. Their, you know, our health care is being treated differently than everyone else. And so, you know, JLN is proud to have connected with you, Russia, and to bring you, you know, in this case of, you know, citywide importance for, you know, definitely all the CTA workers, but also can affect other employees. You know, historically, unions have been a good protagonist of our rights as LGBTQ people. some of the domestic partner benefits and things back in the 90s, as well as things even before that. There's been some good solidarity, and so anybody who's out there, use your union as an option to help advocate for you in your circumstance. We've got a caller. Please, we'd love to hear from you, caller.
Good evening.
Hello.
Yeah, my comment is kind of a collaboration or corroboration to what you just said, Brent. I think it's really important that Russia's union local get on board with this. They shouldn't be permitted to say, well, we don't know, or we really can't do anything. This is unfamiliar territory. I know your plate is pretty full, but I would continue to put pressure on the union to advocate for transgender folk.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. Because of this point, these cases can have a much more dramatic effect, general effect on the workforce population when we leverage the benefits of the union apparatus that's out there. So. We don't want this. We're doing a television show. Russia was excited about doing a television show to get this message out there. This is not. We don't want this to be an individual case that's just left as an individual case. We want everybody to have access to the health care that they need in gender affirmation and more. So. You've got some exciting things going on. You've got a clothing line that you're starting. Tell us about what you got going on.
Actually, right before this whole thing started with CTA and trying to get surgery, I was just kind of strolling on some of those Facebook groups I was telling you about, and I noticed that a lot of trans guys like myself, they say. Oh, I wish we had this in the community, or this, or they just didn't feel like, I guess kind of felt left out, like myself. And so, literally, I remember thinking like, yeah, that's a good idea. Someone should do that. And once I got in contact with the ACLU, and I felt like I have more potential to do more than what I thought I could, I was like, well, why not that person be me? So I started working on that, and just to, I guess, create something that would make me feel proud and other people feel proud to be who we are and to be a part of this community and to be visible.
There was a picture that we saw earlier where you were wearing one of your designs, which was just after having top surgery, a hat that says "Self-Made Man."
Yeah.
Which is a great, it
fit.
Yeah, it's perfect. So we're gonna see if we can bring that up here just to show everybody again. But notice the hat designed by our very own Russia Brown here. So, and you're writing a book.
Yeah. I over the years I get kind of a bit disturbed that usually the first question when you come out to friends and family about being a lesbian or being trans is has what happened to you as a kid, did something happen to you? And so I think contrary to a lot of Lifetime movies that I've seen, everyone doesn't have like some kind of traumatic experience that causes them to be homosexual or transgender. Some people just are. And I kind of felt, I'm like, well, I can't be the only one in the world that who just is. So maybe if I write a book about my story, someone can relate to it.
So Rush Brown's got a lot to offer the world, and we're excited about this new, fresh start that you're making here.
Thank you.
So we talked a little bit about what to do if you see that your insurance is not going to cover your gender affirmation surgery, or other aspects of gender affirmation. How to address how Russia did that was talk with the healthcare provider and the case manager, talk to an attorney. I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it just took one letter to the CTA, and they were like, okay, yeah, we'll offer this. So
I was very surprised by that. Yeah.
And granted, it was an attorney's letter.
Yeah.
So that's how you did it. We talked about that if you're represented by a union, let them know what the situation is with other union employees and at other places, and see if they can be an advocate for you, as well as we should talk about a national health program. So Gay Liberation Network is a direct action group in Chicago, and we are working in solidarity with all workers, and so we've talked on this program in the past about a national health care program, and advocated for that with a variety of protests over the years as the government has tried to cut health care benefits for people. And actually right now there does seem to be some political conversation going on about these things like improved Medicare for all. As we mentioned earlier in the program, Medicare does cover gender affirmation, and the healthcare for gender affirmation. And so these are things that would be in advance for all workers, including the situation of trans healthcare. And so these are things that we can all do to advocate for improved lives for all of us. And then, do you have any other thoughts about things that people can do to make sure that they get their health coverage that they should have?
Yeah, I would definitely say to use your resources. I know if you go in Howard Brown and talk to some people, they can point you in the right direction, or the Broadway Youth Center, or Brave Space Alliance. I would just say, I guess don't be afraid to open up, ask someone, talk to someone who might be able to help. There's a variety of different avenues to venture through if you to get to a specific goal.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important to remember that there's always more than one way to do things. So.
You mentioned Broadway Youth Center, which tell people how to get connected with Broadway Youth Center.
Believe it's on Irving Park and Broadway. I believe 4007 North Broadway. You can just go in there and talk to the people at the front desk. Ask them, let them know your situation. Ask them if they have any resources that could help you. And they do, legal services, assistance with getting a home, clothes. I know there's a program called After Hours at Howard Brown. That's, I believe, the first and third Friday of the month, where you can go to to their clinic to see a healthcare provider. Just loads of resources at these particular places.
You also mentioned, and right now the name of the place going out of my head,
Brave
but the
Space
Alliance.
Alliance.
Yeah, Brave Space Alliance, and one of the people that's involved there, Lasiah Wade, is going to be on one of the panels that I talked about earlier. So I think we'll start with some announcements here, and we'll talk about the Brave Space Alliance a little bit more with one of them. So tomorrow at 1 o'clock downtown, no deportations, no database, and no detentions, the Triple D. Come out to Grace Place in the South Loop at 1 o'clock tomorrow and learn about the gang database and how it feeds the deportation and detention system of this government. And May 5th, we're going to have a journalist from Palestine talking about the experience for, I think, about 30 years of writing about the Palestinian and Israeli experience there. So May 5th, it's a Sunday, 1:30 to 3 o'clock. Some food's going to be provided. And then this event, the 50th anniversary this year of the Stonewall Rebellion, and how to make gay power, black power, women's power, student power, all power of the people continue for the next 50 years. And one of the people that's going to be talking at that event is Lasiah Wade from Brave Space Alliance.
Yeah.
Russia, just say a moment about Brave Space Alliance. And
I believe it's relatively similar to Broadway Youth Center and Howard Brown. Just a place, a safe space to go to get connected with different resources and just be around people that are like yourself, you know, people that won't judge you and that will do whatever they can to help.